Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm back with an October 9th update. The day has finally arrived that I have been talking about for the past 5 months. So let's see what's going on. So I'm going to start with a scripture here. It says, "Then he said to them, Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be great earthquakes," which I believe are nukes, "and in various places, famines and pestilence. And there will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and on the earth distress of nations and perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves. People fainting with fear and with foreboding of what is coming on the world. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken, and they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when you see these things begin to take place, straighten up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." Luke 21:25. And what do we have today? A massive Earth-directed solar flare and CME that could impact the Earth at the same moment that Milton makes landfall. So Milton would be the roaring of the waves and the seas, and the solar flare would be signs in the sun. So our redemption is drawing near. So when exactly did this solar flare kick off? It kicked off UTC time right around 2 o'clock UTC. There's the division of 12 here. This says 3:36 UTC all the way over here, so go back a little bit. And if you convert that to Israel time, it's about 5 a.m., which is daybreak, astronomical twilight, 5:15 a.m., which lines pretty much right when the flare went off. That's the moment of time that I originally expected that the rapture could be at daybreak, but that didn't happen. But we got a solar flare instead. And it takes about 15 to 18 hours for a CME to reach Earth. And that would put it arriving on October 9th. And that's significant. So let's look at the sunspot, 3848, which was directly Earth facing. It's this sunspot here. That's the one that erupted. And if I interpret the sunspot number as a Strong's number and look up every place it's found in the Bible, it shows a very curious and relevant set of verses. Daniel 5:7. "And the king cried aloud, bringing the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, Whosoever shall read this writing shall show me the interpretation thereof, will be clothed." That word clothed is H3848, "with scarlet, and have a certain chain of gold about their neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." That we're going to be clothed with our garments. If the Father is the first ruler, the Son second, and we're the third ruler. I don't know. That's just an interpretation. Could be wrong. Then we have Daniel 5:16. It says, "I have heard of thee that you can make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now if you can read the writing and make it known to me the interpretation, you shall be clothed." And then the commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel. So these are the only 3 verses in the entire Bible, which occurs 3 times in 3 verses in the Hebrew, that align with that sunspot value. So this is talking about the writing on the wall at the fall of Babylon. It could not be a more appropriate sunspot number. And of course, it occurs exactly at daybreak in Israel on October 9th. So several days ago, I composed a blog that I never published, but I'm going to share some of it now. You'll have to take my word for it. I was talking about the solar flares, the 7.1 and the 9x solar flare that occurred earlier this week during the Feast of Tabernacles. The most, a 9x flare is a most powerful one the sun can produce. And it came from sunspot 3842. And I looked up 3842 back then, and I got these three verses. It says, "Who is she that looketh forth as the morning, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, and as terrible as an army with banners?" So the word here is moon. So the sunspot word means moon, but only in these three places. All the other places, there are several other words that are translated as moon as well, but these are the only three places in the Hebrew where this word appears. "And then the moon shall be confounded, and the sun ashamed, when Yahuwah of hosts shall reign in Zion and in Jerusalem before his ancients gloriously. Moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold as the light of 7 days. And in the day Yahuwah bindeth up the breach, or heals or raptures his people, and healeth the stroke of their wound," when we fell. So here we have sunspots during the Feast of Tabernacles, which originally got me thinking about these sunspot numbers, talking about the sun being 7 times brighter than normal, which causes the moon to also be 7 times brighter on that day. And of course, if we put the context of Isaiah 30:25 up here, "And on every lofty mountain, or every proud nation, and on every high hill, there will be streams of running water on the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall." And then I alluded the verse that we already read up here. So the sun being 7 times brighter. "Then behold, the name of Yahuwah comes from a remote place. His anger is burning in dense smoke. His lips are filled with indignation, and his tongue is like a consuming fire." That's one way to interpret that, is nuclear Armageddon. Of course, in the other verse from Isaiah 24, the context there is, "Behold, Yahuwah lays the earth waste, devastates it, twists its surface, and scatters its inhabitants. And the people will be like the priest and the servant, his master, and the female servant, like her mistress, and the buyer and the seller." Basically, everyone's made equal. The lender and the borrower, the creditor and the debtor, because everything collapses. Money is worthless. It's a complete collapse. "The earth will be completely laid waste and completely plundered, for Yahuwah has spoken this word. The earth dries up and crumbles away. The mainland dries out and crumbles away. The exalted people of the earth dwindle. The earth is also defiled by its inhabitants, for they violated the laws, altered its statutes, and broke the everlasting covenant. Therefore a curse," nuclear war, "devours the earth, and those who live on it suffer their guilt. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth decrease in number, and few people are left." Isaiah 24. So that's coming from the sunspot of the X7 and the X9 solar flares during Feast of Tabernacles. And of course, signs in the moon. The word is moon. All right, now let's go back to Revelation. It says, "I saw what appeared to be a sea of glass mingled with fire, and those who had conquered the beast and the image and the number of its name standing beside next to the sea of glass in the air, with the harps of God in their hands." And there was a rainbow around the throne, which is heavens and stars, like an emerald in appearance. That's the Aurora borealis. So when I saw the solar flares, I'm like, I wonder if there's going to be a solar flare that causes Aurora borealis on October 9th, because that is part of the sign that is described in Revelation. So I was expecting another solar flare after 7 and 9, which then, of course, happened directly at daybreak on October 9th. So earlier this year, on the 10th of May, there was a X3 solar flare, and it caused northern lights to go all the way down to central United States to be visible, which is potentially visible in Israel as well if it went in that direction. Of course, this is what the sea of glass mingled with fire looks like behind this guy here. Now, this guy's a bit of an astrologer. I don't endorse that, but they do say that crazy events expected October 9th through 12th based on their understanding. And of course, this is the different auroras that are going to be visible based upon the severity of the storm, the CME that's coming our way. Now, they predicted that there would also be X flares in the next several days from October 5th. And of course, that is what happened. So, if there's to be a notable aurora on October 9th in the USA corresponding to John's vision, then I would expect a massive Earth-directed solar flare. So that's what I was expecting to see. That's what happened. At this point, I'm wishing I had published it so you could believe that I expected that. So the consequence of such a solar flare and CME is to temporarily disrupt military communications, and it would make a prime time for an attack because the ability to communicate counterattack codes would be reduced. There's certain frequencies that we need to communicate with our subs. Those frequencies are disrupted by the sun, which acts as a giant jammer. Perfect time to attack if you know it's coming. And of course, this solar flare that occurred at daybreak in Israel is an X 1.8, and it's a strong flare event that's expected to be a HF radio blackout event. All right, and you can view this Medium post and watch this video here, which goes into great detail about this flare produced a much stronger proton burst and weird effects on the sun. It actually caused part of the sun to turn dark black right above. This is the flare here, and the region above it turned black after the flare. And the guy who was reporting on it said that that's a very unusual thing. He's never seen anything like that happen before. So this is an unusual, directly Earth-facing flare at the exact moment of sunrise on daybreak on October 9th. And then, of course, we have the hurricanes on the Day of Atonement and the Atzeret. So even the news is reporting that Hurricane Helene damage is biblical, say North Carolina officials. Day of Atonement is a day of judgment. That's the first hurricane. And of course, this is from 5 days ago, or 4 days ago. Tropical storm Milton was expected to hit on Wednesday, October 9th, originally at 2 p.m. Now it's going to be closer to midnight or so. Maybe 1 p.m. on Thursday, which is still October 9th on the biblical day, which goes from daybreak to daybreak. So we are still on the Atzeret from daybreak today until daybreak on the 10th of October. All right, so since then, Milton has turned into the second most powerful hurricane on record and is scheduled to impact Florida with what could be a direct hit to our military base that serves as the headquarters for our Middle East efforts. All the war coordination going on with Israel is managed out of Tampa. So the expected record-breaking storm surge could wipe that out. Seems like an appropriate target for a judgment. Now, of course, we have updated stats from today when I'm updating this blog post that shows that the hurricane is Category 4 and it's going to make impact right around Tampa around 1 a.m., which is about 16 hours after the CME, well within the window for the CME to arrive at Earth at the same time. And the CME would also tend to amplify the hurricane. So I just decided to investigate, well, what is the Gematria for Milton? And it's 249. And it happens to align with the following words: end of time, collapse, anointed, discipline, despair, and childless. Remember, the Bible says that when Babylon collapses, she will be made childless and a widow of the rapture. And earlier this week, we have the Russian ambassador leaving the United States without being replaced. That's an ominous sign. That means there's going to be no coordination. It means they're getting their people out of the way before they do something, perhaps. And then we've got Russia deploys their mobile nukes. And, of course, in addition to deploying the mobile nukes, this Canadian prepper goes more into the military headquarters and its relationship to the destruction caused by Milton. So check out Canadian Prepper for that. That was a couple days ago. And here's a picture of the nukes coming out of their bunker. They're on trucks, so they can be moved around so we don't know where to target in advance. Of course, they have to come out of their bunkers before they can launch them. And so they bring them out, and this is all released by the Russian. So that's what's going on. I would say that we are still on track for an Ataret's rapture and fall of Babylon, which is the day it says. It looks like it could be on Babylon time zone instead of Israel time zone, which is appropriate. So I'm not going to rule out October 9th being off until sunrise in the United States on October 10th. I'll see you there.